I don't know if the camera can see, but I am smiling. This just makes me very, very happy. All this pork and all this delicious glaze going on. This is my kind of cooking right here, guys. Hey everyone, Chef Geoff here. Welcome to my kitchen. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit the old subscribe button. If you like what you're seeing, give me a big thumbs up. So today's recipe we posted on chefgeoff.ca. So okay, if you want to think like a chef, you have to master some classical cooking techniques, and once you understand how to use them, they become applicable in so many different ways. So let's talk braising specifically. Braising is one of those classical techniques. It's a three-stage technique. And once you understand it, you can use it in so many different ways. So those three stages that I'm talking about, it's always the same. You sear your meat, you build a flavorful broth, and you use that flavorful broth, pour it over, and braise your meat low and slow in the oven. And in the end, you get this really beautiful, melt in your mouth protein, and you get a really flavorful stock that you can play with afterward. So with that in mind, today we're gonna make beer braised pork belly. And I mean, like, look at this thing. It is beautiful. And if you look at it, it kind of looks like bacon, and this is what bacon is made out of. And our friends Lou and Kim happen to have some pork belly lying around, so they decided to pass some our way, which is just so awesome. So we're gonna get rolling on our beer braised pork belly. So let's get started. So okay, first things first. Pork belly, as you can see, it's got a really, really thick fat cap. So what we're gonna do is, with a really sharp knife, we're gonna just score it just all the way down through, but you don't wanna cut the flesh. What this is going to do is help the fat render out and break down all those sinews while it's cooking and while we sear it first off. We're gonna get these nice little diamond patterns on it. And I got my skillet heating up there. And we're gonna roll over to the stove real quick. Okay, we got our skillet at a kind of medium-high heat. I can start feeling the heat here. We've got our pork belly scored and ready to go. We're just gonna drop this down. And we're probably gonna have to work in batches here, but you don't wanna crowd your skillet too much, but I should be able to fit about 4 pieces in here. And I didn't put anything in my pan whatsoever. Oh man, once it even just like the heat hits that pork belly, it just smells amazing right away. Okay, so it's been about 2 minutes, or 2 minutes in the future here, and the kind of the dead giveaways, you're starting to see a little bit of browning along the edges of the fat. So we're just gonna flip these over, and we're starting to get a really, really nice sear on those. And the really great thing with all this pork belly, it's gonna produce all this bacon fat, and you can reuse this stuff instead of oil if you're making soups and so forth. So we're looking at another 2 minutes or so while these are sauteing, while they're searing. Okay, so mirepoix traditionally in the French world is onions, carrots, and celery. Celery is banned in this house. So what we got here instead is, I've got some julienne onion, I got some rough chopped carrots, but we're gonna, instead of the celery, we're gonna add a little bit of apple instead. And as you know, apple just goes so well with pork. So we're just gonna peel this thing off and chop it into kind of rough chop pieces, and it's going to add that little bit of tart and sweetness to the broth while we're braising. It's just going to be a really nice flavor component. So you're just going to take your pieces here, and you just need like thick pieces, really rough chopped. You don't have to be too precise while you're doing this. That's what we're looking for. That's perfect. I'm going to check on my pork. Okay, so I've got everything seared. I've removed. They're just sitting in my pot here. Sorry, my what is that called? Pan. I've removed most of the fat, but I've kept some of it in there, and we're going to start sautéing our mirepoix. We're going to cook this down for a couple of minutes, and no need to add oil or anything like that. You've got that beautiful pork belly liquid that's still in there. At this point, we're going to add our aromatics, and again, with this technique, it's always the same. Of course, you can kind of add and remove as you want, but you always want to saute off your vegetables. You want to add your aromatics, and then after that, we'll deglaze with all of our liquids. So here I've got a spice blend. So with pork, this works really well. We have some star anise, dry mustard, allspice, cracked pepper, a bay leaf, and some fresh rosemary. We're just gonna add this all in and let the heat do the work for a couple of minutes. So our veggies are getting a little soft here. We're just gonna add a little bit of brown sugar. This is 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. In you go. Now this wouldn't be beer braised pork belly without some beer, so what I like to use is like an amber ale, something that has a little bit of hoppiness, something that has a little bit of malt. This is Henderson's Best. It's going to work really, really well. And what we're doing here is we're adding it to our veggies here. And we're also going to add a little bit of chicken stock. I'm not sure how much I can fit in this pan. We'll see. I'm going to fill it up a lot and try not to make a giant mess. Now, throughout this cooking process, like as I was saying before, it's a 3-stage process, and this is a really important component when it comes to braising. You have to bring that liquid up to a boil, and you have to simmer it. And as soon as it's hot and ready, you pour it over your over your proteins, and then you can start braising. If you just put in cold liquid, you're not braising. That's just like roasting with, you know, a flavorful broth. Kind of forgot to say that we got to add some maple syrup. This is Canadian style cooking, guys. So we're going to add 3 tablespoons of maple syrup to this thing as well. We're going to add, because that will help offset the bitterness of the beer, because that is a kind of a hoppy beer as well. So let's get that in there. And the last little component is just a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. In you go. Oh, the house just smells spectacular, guys. Okay, we're ready to go here. I'm taking this off the heat. And ever so carefully, I'm going to try not to make the world's biggest mess by pouring this over there. So we'll see what happens. That's great. So my measurements were bang on, which is good, because you have to have, the really important thing as well is to make sure that your proteins are totally submerged from that liquid. Look at that, looks beautiful. All right, so my oven is set to 350 degrees. We're gonna roast this, so we're gonna braise this in there for 2 hours. We'll see you in a couple of hours. All right, stage 3 is done, guys. We've got some braised pork belly. The house smells amazing. So, but we're not done yet. The beauty of braising, it produces a couple of things. So you get your beautiful, like melt in your mouth braised protein. In this case, it's that beautiful pork belly. And we're left with some super tasty, flavorful vegetables as well. And then all this stock. So after this was all said and done, now we have pork stock. So there's so many different applications. This stuff is just so tender, it's just falling apart. Oh my goodness. It smells so good. All right, I'm kind of losing track here. With all this beautiful stock that's left over, you can have all different applications for it. So what we're going to do, we're going to strain it through a fine mesh strainer. I'm going to use some of it, and we're going to make a kind of a Chipotle barbecue style glaze. And if I make a huge mess, we'll see what happens. All right, I got my beautiful pork stock here. I've got about 12 ounces of it. I'm just going to pour it into my pot here, and I'm going to reduce it by half. I'm going to try to strain some of the impurities as well, because it would have been, if I had more time, I would have done this the following day, because when it cools, all that fat would separate, and I would be able to just remove the fat cap right then and there. But, you know, time constraints are what they are. Okay, guys, so I've reduced this down to it was about 3 cups to begin with, and it's down to about just under a full cup. What I've also done here is I've mashed up all those leftover apples, if you remember the apples and all that stuff, and it's just been mashed up with my whisk. And it's going in here with our into our barbecue glaze. And there's a bunch of different components. We're basically going to build a barbecue sauce style glaze. We're going to add 2 tablespoons, maybe 3 of brown sugar. We'll go with 2.5. Works for me. All right. We've got ketchup. This is a cup of ketchup. In you go. If you don't have ketchup, some purists like to rather use tomato paste. You're welcome to do that as well. We have just a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? This is called horseradish. So a tablespoon of horseradish. A little bit of Dijon mustard. In we go. And as I was saying before, we want a little bit of heat, and I have a little bit of Chipotle paste left over from my Chipotle maple soup. with the glazed pecan, so we're adding just a teaspoon into there. A couple of shakes of Worcester sauce. We're gonna call it Worcester sauce. There we go. And just like a tablespoon, well, probably about a cap's full of apple cider vinegar, maybe 2. Let's go with 2. You do want a barbecue sauce to have a bit of tang. There we go. We're gonna whisk this stuff up together. And I guess the last thing that has to go in here, and that's a really, really key component to a great barbecue sauce, is molasses. Dirty hands, here we go. And we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of molasses, and that's gonna add that really nice tang. It'll also help a little bit of color as well. 1 and 2, maybe 2.5. 2.5 sounds good. There we go. Lots of molasses. In you go. We're gonna whisk this thing up. We're gonna get it on medium to low. Okay, so while the barbecue sauce, our Chipotle apple barbecue sauce, is kind of simmering down, let's just prepare some pork belly. And as you guys know, pork belly is all about that beautiful crispy skin. And this is such a versatile protein. You can have it on a taco, it can be in a sandwich. I envision the world's greatest BLT in my future. But in the meantime, let's just show the application for today. So we're gonna take a big hunk of pork belly, cut it right in half, and we're gonna sear this one straight, and he won't be glazed, or she. We'll take a couple of other ones here, and we're gonna cut like some strips. Yeah, there we go, and you can see that beautiful cross section there. And these ones we're gonna cut and glaze. There we go, that one got kind of a little wrecked, but that's okay. There we go, perfect, perfect. Okay guys, let's sear some pork belly. I've got my skillet on kind of medium to high. You always want to go presentation side down first, and that's gonna be our crispy skin first thing. A couple of pieces of crispy skin down there. And again, because this is such a fatty, beautiful, delicious meat, you don't need anything in your skillet whatsoever. No butter, no oil, or anything like that. We're gonna do the same thing for our slices of pork belly. Okay, so we're gonna flip over look at that beautiful, that is pork belly right there, like really nice and crispy. So these are gonna get all different sides here. There we go, that's what I'm talking about. We're gonna get all the corners of this. And our slices of pork belly, they're gonna get nice, and we're gonna flip them, and then we are going to glaze these ones here. Oh yeah. Got our barbecue sauce here. Oh yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Okay guys, I hope you've enjoyed today's lesson about how to braise your pork belly. And again, this is once you understand the basics of braising, this whole process and this technique can be applied to anything, whether that's game meats or chicken and pork and so forth. But now let's build this plate. So it just smells incredible now. We have the caramelization happening from the barbecue sauce, and we got some really nice color on our pork belly as well. Oh my goodness! All right, we're just making a plate full of pork, you guys. Look at that. Now that's what I'm talking about right there. Great. I'm just gonna throw down a little bit of our sauce here. Just brush it along like so. You will go there. And here's our finished product with our pork, with no glaze. Look at that, guys. Just a plate full of pork. All right, great. Super happy. My house smells awesome. I got pork all over the place. So I've got some Henderson's Best red ale, the same stuff I was braising this pork belly in. And I'm ready to chow down, guys. So from my kitchen to yours, bon appetit.